on the maintenance issue, but in the meantime, the select board chair has said he's contemplating pulling the trigger and unleashing maintenance and bicycles, which raises what in the grand scheme of things are maybe some subordinate questions, but nonetheless timely and important, which are raised and were left hanging back, well, almost 3 years ago by the planning commission. And so for the benefit of all those assembled, I brought copies of these recommendations. And it seems to me that there are three issues, two obvious ones. One is what is non-motorized use of trails mean? What is an event? And I think there's also a question about the first issue, which is policy, not an ordinance. And the recommendation lays out a position on that and then notes that the Vermont League of Cities says that's the wrong approach. So I'm going to pretend that that should be open for further discussion. So I urge I think it would be regrettable, horrific, inexcusable if bikes were unleashed on the trail with these issues having sat unaddressed for 3 years and then still remaining unaddressed if and when the trigger is pulled.
All right.
I might have missed something, but you sort of lumped together like quote pulling the trigger or unleashing maintenance and bikes on the trail, and I think you're referring to the most recent discussion at the select board meeting.
Not the most recent, no.
May 14th.
Well, not the most recent meeting, but to my knowledge, the most recent discussion of trails at a select board meeting.
It was one Tuesday.
This past Tuesday, there was a discussion. Oh, okay, so maybe I did miss something. Okay,
yeah,
because I thought we were just talking about maintenance as.
Yeah, I'd watched the video.
Okay,
I don't think we need to go over it right now, but
okay.
It's a little up in the air,
Yeah.
but the issue is sort of pregnant.
there's no. Wasn't aware of any motions related to trails. There were no decisions on Tuesday.
Okay.
All right, from the select board perspective.
Yeah.
Right. They are aware that the trail's open for walk-in at this stage too. So,
Yeah.
right. And I got legal trail status at the end of this. We can talk through that. Anyone else, public comment?
Just, it's interesting that John brought this, and I'm glad he did, because I think the planning commission's discussions over the last several years under different heads, Laura Ginsburg being there, and then a predecessor to you, Ann Linehan, on the initial trails committee, that the paper trail, it's not, well, it's a lot of paper trail, but to follow it and to what the recommendations and some significant changes that were made in the final town plan, which has affected the select board's perspective on the town trails. I don't recall at the time, I would think that when the town plan, which was delayed for quite a while due to other reasons having to do with Two Rivers, was finally passed kind of at the deadline. It was a December meeting downstairs at the town hall, that a change was made that kind of watered things down as to what had been the general understanding about the non-motorized use and what had been put in the town plan. So for those, and particularly, I know you're going to talk about future members of the legal of the Trails Committee, that they all be advised to try to read through all of that and make some sense of it, find out why we are where we are today.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, so discussion on members and terms. That's our next topic, unless Amy or Peter have something to say.
Oh, no, go ahead. Proceed. Thanks.
The link to the document that John printed and handed out. So, okay, so everyone here planning to return for another year term? Yeah. Rudy?
Yeah, willing to.
Elise wrote me and said she plans to, I haven't heard from her. So, but, so, all right, so the way we've done it the past few years, everyone here has been appointed by either the select board, Rudy, myself, Sue, and Kevin appointed by the select board back in 2021. Thornton and Elise appointed by the planning commission, I'm not sure when, and we decided 1-year term, so at any moment we could all leave, you know, if it got real bad, right? So, yeah. But a lot of the ones from the select board have been on for a while, right? So one thing I wanted to bring up is it seems like the Trails Committee is here to stay, right? And is expanding its responsibility to the town forest, right? And potentially, you know, private-public partnership with Strawberry Hill, right? So I think it's important we can discuss this, but I think it's important to formalize terms and how members are, you know, maybe even cycled out intentionally, right? To keep it fresh. So, yeah, and I think that discussion should happen at the planning commission level where they establish the terms and how the approach to cycling in and out, right? Obviously, they can't say, hey, Rudy, we're gonna cycle you out to nobody, right? They'd have to pick somebody, but any thoughts on that?
What are most of the terms for the other?
We're a subcommittee, right?
Oh, that's, yeah.
Right, so I am not aware of terms even for
Mm. Any,
planning commission. I don't know if there are, I don't know what they are,
I don't believe there are.
but. Yeah, just want to discuss it. How do y'all all feel about putting that in front of the planning commission to look forward 1 year? And be intentional with this group.
To look forward 1 year
Yep.
as a point where that sort of cycle
Yeah.
could happen,
Yeah.
could start happening.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
And they may decide 2 years, 3 years, you know, just to, because right now. We could all. Resign and planning commission would have to start completely fresh, right? Okay.
Just in addition, so the radio station has a board and been writing the agenda for 7 years. And we've had a staggered, we don't have 3-year terms, we have 1 or 2-year terms. And one of the objectives of that is that you might have somebody I'm kind of, but I don't know if I want to do 2 years, do 1 year. And they may decide, you know what, I want to re-up again for either 1 or 2 years. So roughly half of the board is on for 2 years and half the board, so that there is this chance for people to come and go. And some people clearly don't work out.
Yeah.
You know, and that you can tell during the 6 to 8 months of that first year, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
And other people, you know, they might have a 1-year term and I know they're up, I'll do 2 years this time.
Yeah.
So that gives you more flexibility if it's kind of staggered.
Yeah, great. And I am planning to coach again this fall. So it means, yeah, anyway, we could move on to any other comment on that topic.
I'm just gonna say staggered terms is different than limited terms. Different issues.
Different issues, yeah. Sure. Okay, all right, so election of chair and secretary. Do we have any, what's the word? Any nominations for chair?
I would be happy to nominate you. Or
I'll second that.
All right, so. Do I have to say anything like, do I have to receive the nomination or reject it? So. All right, so,
We have to see if there are any other candidates.
any other candidates? Kevin is here, he might go for it. Okay, all in favor of me as chair?
I
I,
Um,
Not Rudy, instead of Stan.
Hold out.
Okay, any nominations for
Solely by
secretary?
distraction.
For secretary, I nominate, go ahead,
No, if you, no, you,
go ahead.
I'm not to say we're in a rut, but I would nominate Rudy if he's willing to, continue seriously doing his work. At least it's not a wet run.
Any seconds?
Are you not interested? You seem like a very ridiculous.
I try to take notes, but I think a big piece of what I've appreciated from Rudy is the background and the depth and the access that he has to
And I mean, I'm not saying that,
documents, yeah.
I just want to make sure that Rudy doesn't get. I mean,
Railroaded.
you do so much that you're not overwhelmed.
Like part of
That's
the
all.
part of the
Yeah,
reason I'm
yeah.
recording this is so
Yeah.
that
I
he doesn't have to. submit that. Any other nominations? All right, so all in favor,
Did he accept?
oh,
Yeah.
all in favor of Rudy as secretary, say aye.
I,
I,
Great, okay. All right, town force update, so 2 weeks ago, we installed the kiosk. And it's ready for materials, right? I did email Kevin, if he would maybe put together that final map
Mhm.
within the park, and you are here. And then we have 1, 2, 3 mini kiosks along the way for any purpose, mainly to say, hey, you were here, but also to, maybe there's some educational item in that area, right? So the benches just arrived yesterday. So I'm gonna put one just as you go into the trail in the shade. And then we'll put one, hey, you've committed to the hill, you're halfway there, you wanna break,
yeah,
so.
good
that's the
idea.
plan. Drew Forrest, Elise, and her husband, David
Hmm.
are starting to look at the Drew Forest Trail and the,
Drew, up here.
yeah.
Mm.
do you know where Drew Road is? You know where Brenda lives?
Yeah, isn't that the town forest or is it town?
It's the town, there's two
It
town
is,
forests.
yeah.
Both up there?
There's one on this side, one there, and then one on the other side of the rec field by the garage. Two town forests,
Right, that's the town.
Wicked Woods.
Hmm?
Wicked Woods, it's
His
called.
name.
Yeah, and starting to look at trail signage for there, and mapping that out. Anything else on the town forest to update? Yeah, and I'd love for, I'd reach out to Eliza on the Conservation Commission to kind of think about how, material they would like to promote in the town forest, right? And,
I would advise also consulting with some people that did make a trail there, and you're probably aware that George White, Scott Beavers, and 1 or 2 others several years ago created a trail there that kind of wound back and forth, which is probably all overgrown. It never really caught on, and there was
Yeah.
logging and everything, but
Okay.
they would certainly have some good perspectives
Great.
on signage and what might be logical routes for trails.
great. Yeah, excellent. Okay, anything else on town forest?
Just that when the kiosk came, signs also went up on the trails. And then, the benches just arrived. You mentioned the benches already, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we're still hoping to do a renaming ceremony there in the fall, so there were some South Royalton students that helped on a number of projects there this spring to prep. They actually cleared some of the stuff, which helped Gordy get the tractor driven auger up to put the posts in for the signs. So that was helpful.
Yeah, it looks really good. Okay, let's see. All right, legal trail status. Um. Let's see, I'll start with Crossroad. It's. What, it's, I said at the select board meeting, it's. The condition is a great example of, what happens over time, when you have that amount of water, right? So. I'm happy at some point to have a group of. Folks walk that with me and see if there's any ideas of what we can do, but yeah, it's, I think it's closed for good reason at this stage, so. Want to speak to Baptist and Orchard? Thornton?
Sure, so, Orchard is open to walking at this point, and Baptist remains closed.
You had posted that, you wanted to see how the rain. It sounds like you're not.
Yeah, I revisited after the rains and the trail is staying firm at this point.
Okay.
Not ideal, but, the ground is firm. It's not getting soft. It didn't get soft after the rains again.
Mhm. Falls Hill,
So it should bear foot traffic.
Falls Hill,
Yes, it's open to walking.
Okay.
Mhm.
right,
Remains.
So just to go back to actually both of these trails, and I do have some experience on the Crossroad. In fact, several years ago, once again, Matt Frost, part of this, Gary Mullen, not on some minor work to make it at least walkable. That is a major challenge. Obviously, the stream crossing at the bottom, the fact that it's gotten rutted out, very steep there. There were, and I'm not saying to revive this, but there were very generous agreements with the abutting landowners, including the Mullins and Euclid Farnham, to use that tractor road around to the left as you're going from Mullins to Farnham's. So that, as far as future agreements that you may make with private trails, with other landowners, that those type of sort of handshake agreements are very doable. That has a lot of challenges, not all that many challenges at the Orchard Road, in my opinion. I've been on that trail for many of the 25 years that I've lived here. That wet spot, which is on the Langos farm side, is approximately 75 to 80 feet long. It's after you cross that brook. I discussed this briefly with Rudy, and I would advise this for the walking part too, that additional signage as you approach that brook may be to advise people to go across, stay within the right of way, the 48, 49 foot right of way. Stay to the left. There actually is a wire fence there, which I believe probably marks the edge of the left side right of way. It's very dry there for the length of the wet area. And then there's an easy cutback to probably at this point, halfway to 2/3 of the way up the slope where it gets dry. And I know that maybe Rudy wants to discuss the possibility of a water bar there, which would be great. That usage for, and I'm not going to change my tune. It was in the town plan that got changed, non-motorized use. You could use that trail for other parts than just walking right now and not be setting foot or tire on the wet area there. Because I think all of us can agree that maintaining the condition of the trail is very important. We know that I think it might be a class 2 wetland there. We've heard testimony in the past about class 2 wetlands. In my recollection is that, and I wouldn't want to do this, that hey, if the town wants to allow all kinds of uses there, in a sense, maybe even trash the wetland, which I don't think any of us are willing to do. but to responsibly take care of it by also maintaining public use is, I think, a really good way to go. Obviously, we know that there are trees that may get removed, may not get removed. Most people that are fairly agile can get over those trees, whether they're walking or whether they're taking their bike or whether they're skiing. They could probably get over. I know the town has concerns about not so much about liability, but safety factors. That has come up in a couple of meetings, and I think that needs to be addressed as well. But and then just quickly to shift over to the Falls Hill Trail, Sue did opine at, I believe, the May 14th meeting that the trail was in very good shape, not very wet. It is very rocky at the top. We know that the Hemingways do not want people trespassing. That would, of course, occur both laterally and also at the top. Good signage about where the trail begins and where it ends. To my knowledge, they have not, and I think it's incumbent on them to put a no trespassing sign at the top where their property, their private property starts. That has not happened yet. So as far as confusion among other people that may not be as well versed on this legal trails, that's totally up to the private landowner if they want to post their land. And as far as I know, they have not posted the land there.
And so is your idea that if it's not posted, then it's just open to?
Generally in Vermont, if you don't post your land, the public is allowed to walk across it. That's my understanding. You probably have an opinion on that.
I don't think that's correct.
What's that?
I don't believe that's correct.
And
Well, hunters are right,
Hunters have a constitutional right.
but a landowner can tell a hunter to leave.
No. No, they can't. Not it's like, not unless they go through the rigorous posting process. That,
Or speak to someone directly, they,
Mhm.
in the statute, they're allowed to.
Well, I think
Speak
that
to-
I probably, or you, but I do know, that I could, discuss with Sarah what,
Yeah,
if they want a sign there,
Yeah.
just to make it,
what does it say now? Get to the end of the trail. What's the-
it doesn't, it just says the Falls Hill, trail with the arrow, once you're at the top of it, going back. So one arrow goes, in the bottom of the trail goes.
Implicitly says this is the end of the road, but
Yeah,
Only
that is,
implicitly.
yes, yeah, but I can see what would be confusing.
I think it would be good to clarify what the law is or what the rules are statewide. There's a lot of foraging that goes on by people who go into private land that is not listed at all. I can think of a couple well-known people, Les Hook and Kim, I forget her last name, they put on a number of programs. And my understanding, and I could be wrong, is that if it's not posted, the public can enter that property. And that's why we do see a lot of people posting, and particularly people that are not familiar with the customs of Vermont. And that's fine. They have every right to do that. Some people post kind of a safety zone. They don't want hunting or trapping or fishing, but all other uses or however they stipulate those will be on the sign. And then some say no trespassing and the whole thing, like absolutely do not go on the property. So I don't know if that should go to the town's attorney that's recused himself from the legal trail or to Tarrant Gillies, but it would be good to get some clarity on that.
So I'll just offer my view, and I had to study up on this because I was on NPR discussing trespass, so I had to really go out. And my understanding is that if there's a sign that says no trespassing, or not even but not a sign that necessarily meets the standards of a no hunting sign, but a visible sign, then someone who enters is subject to criminal trespass.
Mhm.
But that if there's no sign, one cannot enter onto private property without the landowner permission, without trespassing. It's by definition a trespass.
Okay, I think we should find maybe a concurrent opinion or a different opinion
Sure.
from a non-biased source.
okay.
Yep.
Any other comments on those?
But recognize your own bias.
Any comments on the legal trail status?
I shared some concerns with Rudy about the water bar, and I hadn't heard about that idea before. I'm not quite sure what's involved, but
I'm not sure either. It would need further looking at, and it appears that there was probably some sort of water bar there in the past.
I mean, there was the notes going way back 3 years ago, until the trail can be reviewed by the state district wetlands ecologist. It's open only to pedestrians when the ground is frozen. Well, that's what I went by the wayside. But I think there was sort of a contemplation of further consultation with Elijah Shoemaker, and he had various opinions about, or thoughts, willingness to provide his expertise. And it seems to me the town might be a good idea to call him up and get his advice.
Anything else on the legal trail status? Okay. Yeah, so that's the end of the agenda. Okay, if we just cover John's comments, even though it's not on the agenda, about if you look at that, if you look at this document, it is, where is it? No event. On the bottom of the first page.
So I had three things I
Oh,
wanted to raise. One was this question of, and so just sort of in order as they appear all on the first page, is ordinance versus policy. And motorized, what's the meaning of a non-motorized vehicle? And what's an event? I could quickly go through each of those, just describe what I think the issues are.
I'm trying to remember if the select board, when they made the motion for non-motorized, did they also mention no e-bikes?
I think they might have.
Right, yeah, something you want to share?
Well, just on the policy versus ordinance, I think the place to start is where Paul Gillis is. And I'm not sure Gillis is right, but he's the town's attorney, and Paul Gillis says that in the absence of restrictions, Katie barred the door on the trail, so anything is allowed. And that it's only by force of a positive ordinance that you can restrict what activities are allowed. And that a policy, although maybe helpful to many people and maybe followed by most people, it doesn't have the force and effect of an ordinance.
Mhm.
And so what I understand that to mean is, you remember a year or two ago, a group of the overlanders came up to Landau's farm and wanted and said, "We're here to go through the Orchard Trail." And John O'Brien frantically waved them down, or this is the lore, said, "Can't go there, can't go there." And they said, "Right, no, we gotta go." He said, "No, you can't go there." And they turned around, they went back. I think, according to Gillies, that he was in the wrong. That there is no legal restriction on the use of the trail, and therefore the overland group can go through there. And according to Gillis, the only way to prevent that is to have an ordinance. And since there are, the town people involved in these discussions differ on a whole lot of issues, but their agreement is to certain uses that shouldn't be allowed. And so it seems to me that it seems sensible to me to have an ordinance and not a policy.
So just to interrupt, so there was an attempt to create an ordinance probably a little over a year ago that didn't really get anywhere. It was, I don't know if the term is withdrawn by the select board, but there was a lot of pushback. That was one of the most heavily attended meetings. I don't know, I think probably almost everybody, maybe not Thornton, was in the room. There were a lot of people on the Zoom call. So, hey, they could bring it up again. There's a lot of administrative things they have to do about 60 days notice, special town meeting, et cetera. An ordinance would trigger enforcement with fines, et cetera. I didn't get the sense at that meeting where they withdrew the effort on the ordinance that they had a whole lot of interest in doing that.
think it's like, I think it's less about finding people. I mean, who's gonna, where are we gonna find the law enforcement people to find anybody for misusing the trail? It's really simply making John right. Then when he says you're not allowed here because you're by the positive law established by the municipality, you are not allowed here. And so he can forthrightly and with confidence and honestly say that you're not allowed. Now, not everyone's gonna follow it, and people who don't follow it are probably not gonna get fined, but I don't think fines are the issue. I think it's just what.
I think an ordinance against motorized vehicle probably would gain more public support. Yep. ATVs, four-wheelers, Jeeps, et cetera. That's my opinion, but that's a lot different than the ordinance that was being.
Well, I'm not speaking to any particular uses. This is, I'm not, if I had my druthers, we'd have an ordinance that says it's only for walking, and obviously, and it won't be widespread unanimous support for that. But I'm not talking about what the content of the ordinance is. I'm just saying that as between a policy and an ordinance, whatever the town does, it ought to proceed by ordinance rather than by policy, in my opinion.
Okay, so the motion back in June 2023 to go back to former uses on the trails, walk-in, bike-in, horseback riding, non-motorized, etc., with a trail steward to overlook the trails and with no organized events going through. So that was the motion.
That just takes us back to 2021, where trails are only for recreational, non-motorized access.
So, okay, let's talk about events real quick. So,
So you just said 2023 for that motion.
Yeah.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
and he's mentioning 2021.
But I'm just pointing out, they use the same term, non-motorized, and she goes on to say, recommendations on unanimous community input, use of e-bikes did not reach agreement
yeah, so there's no comments on the e-bikes, right,
in 2023.
in 2020, in the motion in June.
Right, in 2021, the recommendation was that it be non-motorized, but then the footnote says, but there seems to be this. Well, I don't know, I mean, I don't know, maybe the recommendation was no e-bikes, maybe that's what non-motorized mean, but this seems to leave it up in the air. And I've heard people describe in the past, over the course of these 17 years of discussion, non-motorized vehicles as including e-bikes. Sometimes, some people.
Right, and so I think that to have clarity on the e-bikes that, and you could talk with other trail organizations that there are levels of e-bikes based on weight and capability of speed.
Mhm.
And there are some trail networks that definitely, the higher speed ones, no go. I don't know if they're listed as level 1, 2, 3. I think they might be where level 1 is one that will not go more than 15 miles per hour. I would add additional concern, even at that level. And I am not the number one, any type of bike advocate, as sometimes I am portrayed, but e-bikes tend to be much heavier than a regular bike. Obviously, horses are very heavy. So heavy, the weight of the usage is important. And I could understand a policy that the select board may come up with to say, you know what, there's a growing number of really heavy e-bikes that do, if they want to define, is that a motor? And I think a lot of people might say, hey, you've got an electric assist. That's a motor. Therefore, if we're saying non-motorized, and I think most people, there'd be some people that gripe. There are some residents right here on the road outside that have e-bikes that would probably like to ride on a legal trail, but there's going to be some compromises where maybe that doesn't happen.
23 Vermont statutes annotated 1131A addresses e-bikes on trails. And I think the important provision for our purposes is the one that says that the town can prohibit e-bikes if there's no added surfacing material on the trail. If there is added surfacing, in other words, if it's paved, then the statute differentiates between the different classes, and towns have to go through different kinds of hoops in order to bar different kinds of bikes. But that's for where the surface has been where there's been added surfacing material. if there's no added surfacing material, then the town can, at its discretion, prohibit e-bikes. Without some determination of their destructiveness or the safety issues they raise. Or one thing.
They can, but it's not must.
Oh, no, just they may.
Yeah.
But they,
So the problem with some of the, I mean, it would be nice if the select board, if we could expect the select board to make a decision about, on some of these issues about the e-bikes is that, if you go to some of the national parks, they allow only class 2 e-bikes.
Mhm.
You see, the people bring, nobody monitors that, so, I mean, there's no way to monitor.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have a tag on your e-bike saying this is
No, you
class
wouldn't be able to
3,
tell.
2, whatever, 1. So, it would be nice if they could, think about that in the whole equation.
Mhm.
Either yes or no.
Yeah, it does say towns must specifically disallow e-bikes, otherwise they're given the same access as other bikes, so I think we put this in place.
just to be clear, they must allow them if they have improved surfaces. Or to put it differently, when you get further down, when it talks, it says, but when there's no improved surface, then the town can just in its discretion ban bikes. There's no mandate. If it's a paved trail, the town is presumptively under a mandate from the legislature to allow e-bikes on the same basis as other bikes.
Mhm.
And then there's some qualifications and exceptions, and if the town says this or that, they can limit certain kinds of bikes and so on, but none of that rigmarole applies. If, to my understanding, if there's been no improvement to the surface, then the town just has not a mandate, but a simple discretionary authority to say, now you don't want bikes.
Yeah, so. I say we kick this up to the select board. At the right time. Right, so. Okay. Right, let's talk about events. There is a comment here that. There is a draft class 4 road use policy. Regarding that event, anyone aware of, is it? Amy or Lee, are you aware of that still being a draft or?
I am not sure.
So that was class 4, though, that
Yeah.
outside of your. purview
Yeah, it
here.
was like,
Yeah.
Maybe that's an example to use, right?
Mhm.
The. Let me see if I can find it.
Bottom of the first page. Oh,
Is it on the?
never mind.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah, click here to see a draft of the class 4 policy. From 2021
Where did you find it?
on the Tunbridge Planning Commission. Okay, yeah, I mean. Recreational events are those. In which the participants pay a fee to enter, for example, the ranger. Or participate in as a direct result of separate organized event. For example, Green Mountain Horse Show rides. Only roads that are throughways or connectors may be used unless the organizers have received written landowner permission. Legal trails may not be used for any organized events. Final language pending trails committee work. Event organizers must submit a route and parking plan to the planning commission or for approval by the road foreman. And planning commission, so. The planning commission, select board and road foreman may require alternate routing as necessary. Event organizers must post signs on the actual route at least 1 week in advance. Because participants should be encouraged to use common sense, keeping participant and resident safety in mind. Event organizer must carry a liability insurance policy that protects the participants and town residents, so. Yeah,
This has never been final, or doesn't no indication that it's been finalized?
I don't believe it's ever been finalized.
So I think this is well within the planning commission to sort out. Right?
I know that the impression as someone who has organized events and has witnessed other events.
Yeah.
That even though it's not finalized, I think most people, in fact, something came up about a year and a half ago, a large group, and it might have even been the cadets from Norwich or a group of, I think it was about 100 either students, young people, or were planning to come, and I think come through the Orchard Road, and it was, a nice group of people and everything, and I don't know if I raised my hand or somebody else had said, but that seems like an organized event. They weren't paying a fee. They weren't asking for a permit. I think they might have been asking or just putting a heads up like, we want to do this. And I said, what we've been talking about events, that's a lot of usage in a short period of time.
Yeah.
100 people all at once. And the select board, once again, just by memory, they said, right. No, we can't do that. So the Ranger has no interest in, pushing to have their event go through legal trails. The little ride that I organized that often uses class 4 used to use legal trails until we had our dust up almost 4 years ago. Is no interest in reviving, getting events, even if, if we got a permit. And a lot of that goes back to respecting the compromises that have been made, but also the sensitivity of these trails.
Yeah.
You get a lot of heavy usage in a short period of time. That is not going to do the trail.
No. Yeah, so in regards to clarifying I think that draft is pretty far along, and I would recommend, if the Amy's on the call here, I'd recommend the planning commission consider not, taking that from draft to final. And to, to.
I'd like to read it. I couldn't find it, so
It's
I appreciate it, but
if you go to the planning commission site,
I'll find it.
it's literally like.
Yeah.
It's literally right here, click here to see a draft.
Yeah, well, I'm not very good at that.
So,
There was some version of this, and I don't know whether it it's on the cutting room floor, that has something to do with if there was something, if the event was organized out of the fairgrounds, then it was an event. But if it wasn't organized out of the fairgrounds, then it wasn't an event.
Yeah.
Which, I guess the trail ride people congregated in the fairgrounds, so that made it an organized event. The Ranger congregates at the fairgrounds, so that could be an organized event.
I think the key thing there is they rent the space. And the fair association requires insurance from them.
I mean, I don't know how the Norwich students got organized, but I don't know, maybe they were sitting around the rec room and the college, and they said, let's do this, and I know a great trail, and they were gonna just, ferry over with bikes and go.
Yeah.
I don't believe it was a bike event. Just to clarify.
Oh, okay.
It was
Well,
a
anyway.
walking event.
Well, it just, a big event, I mean, whether or not it's associated with the fairgrounds or launched from the fairgrounds seems sort of incidental, but that was my particular concern that I remembered from having last thought about this about 3 years ago when I looked at that language. But anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss it now and study it in greater detail.
Hey, Jonathan, I was just going to say so I was just keeping track of what we're talking about, and why don't we just plan to bring this up at the next planning commission meeting? There's no events on public or on the legal trails, and we'll have it, we'll look at that since it was just a proposal.
Yeah,
we can see if we can do something with that, make it more formal.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have a planning commission meeting coming up, or I saw some notice about one, but is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, so we meet usually the third Tuesday of every month, although that would be this coming Tuesday, so we're not having this month's meeting. Our next one would be the third Tuesday of July. We have 2 meetings in July because we have a sidewalk proposal discussion happening the week before.
Your regular meeting is the 16th.
The regular meeting, I'm just grabbing my calendar, is the 3rd Tuesday. It's the one in between the select board Tuesdays. So it's the 3rd Tuesday and it's 6:30, same place.
I think that's the 16th, I think.
So if we can, yeah, but we're not having next week's meeting. We're not having this month's meeting. So if I can because I'll be away, but if I can organize something, I usually put it in, well, Jeff posts it on the town website and then I put it in Front Porch and the Tunbridge listserv usually. If there's I'll post it for a regular meeting and then I'll try to post, obviously I'll post if there's a, outside of the normal calendar meeting.
And then at some point, you'll talk about how we handle members at the,
Yeah, I put that. Yeah, I opened up my document from the May meeting and I was just adding to that. So yeah, we need, because that's something we need to talk about at the select board level as well. You were asking about terms. It's like everyone's kind of blown through their terms and is still on, and we just need to get organized there, in part because it's hard to find people to join. So
yeah, it's a thing. I agree.
you don't want to lose people. So
No.
Anyway, yes, so that's on the agenda as well for the next meeting that we have.
So on that subject, do you, as the Trails Committee, do you have sort of an upper limit, like this is the maximum number of members that we can have? Is that written into bylaws or anything like that? It's kind of open-ended.
It's open-ended.
Do you have a sense of what kind of like an ideal number of members is to have?
I think what we have right now is good, but an added one of 7 would be nice,
Okay, and you don't know about Kevin, whether he's re-upping or
No, I
not?
don't. at
Yeah.
this stage.
Okay, because I think maybe the normal route would be somebody that has an interest in joining the Trails Committee should really attend an upcoming planning commission meeting.
Exactly.
Express their interest,
Exactly.
and then if the planning commission vets them and then recommends them directly to the select board, that's the next step.
Yeah. I usually like them to come to a meeting to see what the environment's like.
To come to one of your,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
yeah, I agree, that's good.
And then go to the planning commission for vetting. So, they haven't always said yes to everyone. Just so you know, there have been some that.
Shane Young gave at least 3rd degree on this thing.
All right, any other topics for this meeting?
So you were talking about the Strawberry Hill, so that's still in, they're still looking at all the easement.
Yeah, they have a draft that has been sent to the select board, and in 2 weeks, the select board will read it. I don't know if they'll make a motion or at least agree to it or not, or give feedback for revision. So, yeah.
Who was the maintenance for?
Wasn't on my mind.
No, I mean, my God, how could it escape your attention?
Well, I was quite happy to have a landowner be this generous.
Well, under the restatement, they can be either the dominant.
And they,
stakeholder
let's
or
face it,
servant.
they're trying to sell the property with this access, and that's very generous, so.
Yeah.
Anything to talk next meeting?
Pardon?
Any thoughts on an agenda for next meeting? I'm sure there'll be things that come up along.
Well, we
the way.
should probably know a little bit more about what's happening
Yeah.
over there
Yeah.
at Chester's.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to. Once that gets finalized, we'll wanna consider some trail steward options, right, so. All right, thank you, everybody, thank you online. Yeah, look at it.